Thank you. Well, I am thrilled to be here this morning to talk to you about something that I am so very passionate about. And it's a quintessential ingredient to taking your life and business to the next level. As a lifelong educator, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And so my lesson plan, or the goal for my talk today, is to inspire you to overcome obstacles, whether that's in your life or your business, and by adding this ingredient, which is adventure. So as any good adventure, let's jump right in, shall we? I'm going to start with a scenario that I believe most of you can relate to. And in this scenario, I'm going to describe these two terms, life 2.0 and business 2.0. So here's where you're going to connect. You're in the middle of updating a spreadsheet, your profit and loss sheet for the month, or perhaps you're submitting it to your boss. You're in the middle of that, a time crunch, or you're updating some fabulous photos to Facebook or Instagram for bragging rights of last weekend. You're in the middle of something so important, and bloop, up comes this window. Software update 2.0, application update 2.0, and you have a decision to make. The decision is stop everything that you're doing and update now, computer shuts down, reboots, and 5 minutes off your task. Or you have that later button. By a show of hands, who hits the later button? And who hits that later button time and time and again? I'm not alone, great. So once you press that later button, and you press it again, and again, and again, what happens? Some bugs and glitches start appearing, or they continue. Perhaps even the application slows down. And it's happened to me before that the software completely crashed. Now those updates that you get, which never come at a good time, if you're talking about my experience, probably in your experience too, when is a good time to stop exactly what you're doing and say, okay, yes, I'm going to take 5 minutes off of this? Those updates are meant to improve the functionality of the software, remove those bugs and glitches, perhaps even add some bells and whistles that it didn't have before to be more effective. Now, I start with this example of technology because that's exactly how updates occur in your life as well as in your business. Updates come in forms that you're not expecting, as well as at inopportune times. Life 2.0 is meant to be the best, effective, enhanced life, and so is your business 2.0. More profits, more partners. But sometimes those updates that we receive are not what we expected and not at the right time. When is it a good time to lose your major client? When is it a good time to lose your pet? Or, God forbid, getting an unexpected diagnosis at the doctor. So, with that said, I know what I'm talking about. I was served with one heck of a life update. And my backstory is what I would call an adventure. 7 years ago, I was a successful travel industry executive, jet-setting the globe. Mexico City one day, Berlin, and taking a transatlantic plane back to Orlando. I was also happily married to a Brazilian chef, and keeping up with the Joneses. Or as I'd like to say in South Florida, it's the Joneses and the Juarezes. I also was very active and living a healthy life. I was juggling a lot of balls, but from the outside world, very well. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to multitasking and holding a lot of things together. Then on one of my travels to Hudson River Valley, New York, I had a life update. This life update occurred when I was doing something that all of you do, and each and every week. It's something as mundane as taking out the trash. So my life update took place while I was taking out the trash. I had a crash course in Life 101. As I left the building to admire the fall color change in 2009, I decided to multitask. Why not, on my way out, grab the last night's pizza box in the trash, exited the building, turned to the left, and I was leveled by a 1,000-pound tree limb. I'm going to repeat that to understand the sheer weight and force of a 1,000-pound tree limb. It knocked me out cold, and the next thing that I remember is awaking in the ICU 5 days later. Talk about a life update. Not expecting that. The doctors put the puzzle pieces together for me, because I didn't know what had happened. I was scared, I was confused, and I understood that I had broken my neck and that my recovery was uncertain, and it was definitely going to be a long road. As I was facing that lengthy recovery, and of course this accident happened where home was not. Home was South Florida. I was facing my health in peril, but that wasn't the only aspect of my life that was touched by that blunt hit to the head. You've heard that bad things come in threes. In my case, life updates came in threes, a trifecta of 1-2 sucker punch. As I was dealing with my health in peril, I discovered that my husband had been living a double life, and for a long time with a younger woman. So my health, that ball, dropped. The other ball, my marriage, dropped. And then that high-power career that I identified with, it was a part of my essence. They forced me to resign because they needed to move on with things. They weren't willing to wait for their marketing and PR initiatives for 9 months, which was going to be the expected time for a possible recovery. I call that my when all balls drop moment. And from the looks of the nods, all of us in this room have had something similar happen. That fall, I lost everything that I held dear, and I wondered, is there an upside to losing everything? And I am here as a living example of post-traumatic growth. There is an upside to any loss, hurdle, hiccup, obstacle, whatever you want to call it. But you don't have to be hit over the head with a 1,000-pound tree limb, nor get a divorce, nor lose your career. So this is where we're going to use my story or where you connected to it for a springboard for growth. The lesson of my experience is that I didn't have any control over any of those balls that dropped, but I do have control over how I think about that, as well as I have the power to tap into perspective each and every day. So you'll see up there, that's me next to the 30-foot long, 1,000-pound tree limb up in Poughkeepsie, New York. And I'm going to answer that question. How do you tap into perspective? I told you I was going to talk about the quintessential component or ingredient to taking life to the next level, to life 2.0, or your business to 2.0. And it's by injecting doses of adventure. Now, some of you are nodding your heads, but some of you, you don't believe a word I'm saying. First, let me debunk the myth that adventure is only for adrenaline junkies. Okay? So let's talk about adventure in a more broader sense. Think about it this way. A new activity. Perhaps it's fearful, but it's all-consuming. You're focused, you're in the zone, and doing that activity in spite of the fear, in spite of the challenge, in spite of the uncomfort, that's what makes it an adventure. Now, it can be something that's physical. So the picture up here is of a 22-mile hike that I took on the island of Kauai. You could also throw yourself out of a perfectly good aircraft. But it could be as simple as learning a new sport. And here in South Florida, why not learn to stand up paddleboard? Nothing makes you more focused than having to balance on a board on the water. But adventures can also be mental. By a show of hands, how many of you have tried to learn a second language? There's nothing that puts you more in the zone than trying to make heads or tails of what the professor or the software is saying. It all sounds, looks Greek to you, even if it isn't Greek. Adventure can be mental by pushing something new into your workplace, whether that's doing your first Facebook Live, learning another social media. It could also be emotional. It looks like just about everyone in here is old enough to date. And regardless if it's a blind date or if you're re-entering the dating world after a divorce or a long-term marriage, I bet you would say that dating is an adventure. And maybe even a misadventure, because sometimes knowing what you don't want is almost better than knowing what you do want. So, why do I believe so strongly in this thing called adventure? I actually can attest that adventure is my meditation. And you're going to say, what? That's counterintuitive, because meditation is clarity, it's decluttering the mind, it's peaceful, it's tranquility. Adventure is the exact opposite. But remember, if you think about adventure as something that is all-consuming, that you're focused on one thing, and that you're in the zone, adventure produces the same results as more traditional forms of meditation, such as walking a labyrinth, yoga, or even gardening. If you're looking to take your life to the next level, your business to the next level, or let's just talk about the whole enchilada, why are you doing things the same way? The same processes, the same actions, the same type of networking events? To further prove this whole adventure thing works, have you heard a famous saying that goes like this? by doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result is a definition by a very wise man, Albert Einstein, of insanity. So why in the world would you continue to do the same things and run your life, your business, or the conjunction of the two of them as an insane person? No one wants to be known as an insane person. I certainly don't. Sometimes I act like one, but that's okay. So the task I have for you takes us back to that lesson plan or the goal, to have you overcome obstacles and do that by adding some adventure. You should all have a bookmark and pen either on your chair or next to you. If you do not, I have some up here as well as on the cocktail table in the back. And what I'd like you to do is to write on the back side, what's your next adventure? Now, this can be a small, itsy bitsy tiny step. However, it could be a big, audacious adventure. It can be travel, it can be business related, it could be health related. I'm a firm believer that if you write something down, it's one step closer to accomplishing whatever that is. In order to make it that much more probable of achievement, write a date. Now, I mean date in, I guess, loose terms. If you want to put an actual day on the calendar, or if you would prefer a season. So please take that moment to write it down, what your next adventure is, as well as a date. To further enhance the probability of this adventure to be accomplished or taken or seized, share that adventure and date. So now we're going to test the technology in the room, and if the technology does not work, we'll do old school. I've set up a texting code that you can text me what your adventure is as well as your date. So if you would take out your phone, and if you don't have a bar, you don't have cell phone service, there's some clipboards with paper that you can write your email on there, and then I'll reach out to you for you to share with me your adventure. But if you text 22828 with the words Adventure 2016, you'll then be prompted to share with me how we can communicate and be able to reply to my email. And you can then share with me what your next adventure is with your date. I will in return share with you what my next adventure is. With that said, I wanted to thank you for your time today. I wanted to thank Mind, Body, and Business for having me here today. And a special for all of you that are here, the first 5 people that want signed copies from my booth. I'll throw in the audio versions as well, because I know that all of us are time-starved, and sometimes the only time we have is on our commute to work, or perhaps at the elliptical at the gym. And my name is Heidi Siefkas, author, speaker, and adventurer. As I end my books, talks, blog posts, here's to looking up.